We are joined now by Geoff Schwartz at Geoff Schwartz on Twitter. I think are you sitting in on Labor Day for the show?
I am, yeah. Me and Jason. So it'd be exciting. There's so much to talk about. I'm excited to be there Monday.
Yeah, you know what's wild is this will be the first Labor Day that I have missed in in over a decade of doing radio. And the reason why I'm missing is usually that's the first Monday after college football, and there's a massive amount of games to talk about. But this year, because everything is pushed back, it's actually not as big of a day as it usually is. So instead, I'm running away, spending the day with my family, and then I'll be back on Tuesday. But you're with me, right? Like usually that opening Labor Day weekend, it's not like Labor Day really feels like a holiday. I mean, it's great. But usually I'm kind of sitting on my couch watching all the college football debut. Not to say there, is zero college football going on, but just a lot less in general. So just kind of thinking about it in that context.
My wife and I are going on a vacation tomorrow. It's the first one we've taken
Where are you guys
since
going?
COVID. We're going to Amelia Island,
Okay.
Right outside Jacksonville. So it should be nice. But you're right about Labor Day weekend. I mean, it's the first Labor Day weekend of my lifetime because, I grew up a Bruin fan. I went to UCLA Bruin games that I've ever taken, basically off, vacation, right? Because either I'm preparing for the season in college football or playing this weekend, or I'm in the NFL and this is cut down weekend, which is going to feel a little bit odd, but there'll be cut downs starting most likely at some point this weekend. And, yeah, it's going to be weird I'll maybe catch a couple minutes of a game here and there. I mean, but it's probably the first time ever that Eastern Kentucky's on ESPN proper at noon on Saturday. I mean, it's just so wild that some of these teams, it's good for them, of course, to get on ESPN. But yeah, I've never taken a Labor Day vacation before.
So one of the big questions, we were talking with Joel Klatt about this a little bit earlier. One of the big questions is what exactly is going on in the world of college football? And obviously a big part of that discussion is the Big Ten and many different moving parts, which we spent a lot of time talking about on this show. But as a Pac-12 former player, are you surprised? One reason the Big Ten is getting all the attention that it is because players, coaches, fans, management, everybody out there made an aggressive decision to fight against the idea of the cancellation. The same thing has not happened in any way in the Pac-12. Are you a little bit surprised that it hasn't happened in the Pac-12 at all?
I'm not surprised it hasn't happened in the Pac-12 for a couple of reasons. One is that the Pac-12 put out a comprehensive memo, 12-page memo saying, here's why we are shutting down, right? Here are the reasons why. Their CEO of the president is actually an Oregon president, Larry Scott, the commissioner, Ray Anderson, the athletic director of Arizona State, and their head medical chief all did a press conference to explain the decision. All the coaches, whether they agreed or not, all came out with statements saying, we support the decision. And the conference footprint is in a different place than is the Big Ten footprint as far as kind of the lockdown situation, especially at the time in California. And, some schools couldn't even practice. USC, UCLA, Cal, Stanford couldn't even start practice, right? So it's a different situation than is the Big Ten. The thing that bothers me, Clay, and this is just from a Pac-12 homer, is that no one seems to care we're not playing. Right?
Yeah.
No one cares.
Right.
No, that's the problem to me. It's not that we shut down or that, the Big Ten's fighting this. And it's not every school, but obviously Nebraska filed a lawsuit. It's players at Ohio State and Michigan and coaches there upset about it. And it wasn't a unanimous vote like it was in the Pac-12 conference. But nobody cares we're not playing. And that's the concern I have, is that, the Big Ten, I don't think they're coming back till Thanksgiving at the minimum. And I think they would do it in concert with the Pac-12 and kind of find a way to solve the Rose Bowl be in play at some point. If the Big Ten does go before the Pac-12 for whatever reason, we're going to be so left behind. I do think the presidents of the conference are starting to realize that. There was a leaked memo that came out basically detailing the idea of hiring someone to maybe oversee the commissioner, which why would you do that? Just you can get rid of the commissioner. But nonetheless, they're talking about some new oversight where they don't report to the commissioner, they report to the president. They hired a football operations guy, Mert Hanks, the old 49er. They hired him to run football operations, which has never happened in the Pac-12 conference. So I think that the presidents realize this is a problem. We have to get better at football and better at basketball. So when we're not playing, people are like, well, what about the Pac-12 conference? Because we're being left behind right now.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting in general is, do you think there'll be a lasting impact here? Because that's the question I get asked a lot by college football fans. It's like, okay, if the Pac-12 and the Big Ten don't play, let's pretend you were a college recruit. Would that impact you if you were being recruited in some way by the ACC, the SEC, or the Big 12? Or do you think any possibility of that being an issue is entirely overrated?
I do not think that's going to be a concern. Obviously, they'll be used against the teams that recruit, but Oregon's still third in the country for recruiting for 2021. So, I mean, it obviously hasn't affected them very much, and they're obviously really good at recruiting. The lasting impact is going to be two things. One is the money, right? I mean, trying to come up with the money that you missed. And the Pac-12 has talked about, they have an insurance policy that you can collect on if you're a public school, mostly, $80 million, $85 million. Obviously, you have to pay that back eventually, but, collecting that would be good. But I think the lasting impact from this, Clay, is that the juniors that are sitting out this year, the true juniors or redshirt sophomores, Jamar Chase, the Dean at Miami, those guys sitting out is something they've always wanted to do.
Yep. And
COVID provides them the cover to do so without people ridiculing them. And they even said, like, when Jamar Chase announced, it was like, well, it's not really COVID related. He's just sitting out. So the lasting impact, I think, is going to be that we're going to see true juniors and redshirt sophomores that really have nothing to prove this year just take the year off and get ready for the NFL. And I think that will be the impact from this season for the conferences, really for anyone, not just the conferences that don't play.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this in general is I said this back when it happened, right, that we were going to see a slippery slope, and that the slippery slope was going to be, hey, if you're willing to sit out for a bowl game, then at some point somebody's going to be like, wait a minute, I'm a top 10 pick. Why am I even playing? And I do think you're right that COVID gives a Jamar Chase, for instance, who's already a top 10 pick, an excuse not to have to play, much like, by the way, I would tell anybody out there listening to me right now, hey, if you've got a job and you got to work for the rest of the year, but at the end of that job you're risking your ability to earn a 20 or 30 or $40 million, I'd just sit out, chill for 3 or 4 months, and sign the contract after the first of the year. I think that's great advice regardless. Most of us just don't ever find ourselves in that situation because we're not great athletes whose bodies and talents are worth as much as a guy like Jamar Chase's is.
Yeah, but there's also a stigma with doing that, right?
Yeah,
when
right.
The first person does that you have to overcome that stigma, and I think that
because the football guy wants you to prove that you love football, right?
Correct.
That's the fear in general, is that if you get big money and you don't love the game, that you're never going to commit to it in a big way. And when you're talking about giving a guy $30, $40, $50 million, you want that money to not change him, right? You want him to have the same drive and same intensity that he did before he got the money.
Right. And I do think for the most part that's the case. I do not think that players shut it down when they get money. But, this idea of proving you have to love football is a huge part of the combine process. You remember when you were training with us, like that, they stress that to you all the time. Like, you have to tell everyone you love football because coaches and front office guys live and breathe football. They're in the office ungodly amount of hours. And so you have to convince them, even though you do love football, that you love it. And sitting out your junior year was always looked at as you don't love football. But so Jamar Chase sits out and goes in the top 15. The defensive end from Miami goes in the top 5 possibly. Then never again can you say, well, if you sit out, it hurts you, because obviously it doesn't. So I think this will be the lasting impact, is we'll have juniors decide to come out, not come out, but just sit out their final season.
And for people out there who are, maybe not following along on the logic here, why would a coach say, like, you have to prove that you love football? It's such a cliche. I think your point's a good one there. Those guys are working 16, 18, 20 hours a week. If they're going to lose their job because a guy doesn't make a play, they don't want that guy not making the play because he just doesn't care enough, right? And that's a big part of the process in the NFL is it's so competitive. It's one thing if we lose because somebody's a better player, they got a better game plan, they got a better quarterback. It's another thing if a guy falls asleep in the film room and then doesn't care enough to put in an A-plus effort on the field.
Right, and the coaches' butts are on the line for obviously going to bat for someone to be drafted. That's more of a scout decision. But then putting you in a game or making sure that you have, you know what you're doing. And the coaches, man, they work so many hours. Like people ask me sometimes, do you want to coach? I said, yeah, I'd be a great coach. But I'm not working from 6 a.m. to like 12, at midnight just because I need to be in the office. Like they waste so much time just doing nothing. And
by the way, I think that's something that a lot of people have figured out with working from home during the coronavirus. Like I've always argued that most people, if you told them, hey, you get off Thursday and Friday if you get all your work done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think like 90% of workers could get all their work done going hard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday if you told them they got a 4-day weekend every time.
100%. A lot of people are just, kind of just getting by just to get by. And NFL coaches and, the staff or college the same way. They're all, college has the recruiting factor, which makes it a little different than NFL, obviously. And so, they're just also, they want players that truly love the game. And you have to show that by continuing to play. And look, I think that's why like a Trevor Lawrence is still playing, right? He loves football. Obviously, he loves it passionately because he's part of the We Want to Play movement. And, he has to maybe prove a couple naysayers wrong after last season because it wasn't his freshman season. I mean, he was still good, but it wasn't how he plays a true freshman. He's just playing, just playing through it. And some guys just want to do that. And Jamar Chase and other players are like, I'm out. And I think that both decisions are fine.
I feel like I should knock furiously on wood because anytime you try to say, hey, things are looking good, things immediately fall apart. But within that context, let's shift from college football to the NFL for a minute. Don't we have to be pretty impressed with how well the NFL has done, at least to this point? We're now a little over a week until we actually get to the official start of the season. And the number of COVID-positive cases is, I think, far lower than anybody would have ever anticipated it was going to be in the NFL.
It is. I think they said today that four players tested positive over the last week, and I think six staff members, so 10 total. They've done a fantastic job, and I think far better than I thought they would do well because they're in training camp right now and it's kind of limited. They're limited going out and doing things and getting in places where you can get COVID, but also credit the spouses too. The spouses, that most players aren't in a hotel right now. They're not out at training camp. They're not like in St. Joe's or Spartanburg for the Panthers. And so they're going home every night and their spouses are doing a good job of staying away from places that can get them COVID. So they're doing a great job. And just like you, Clay, the Chiefs and Texans play in 8 days, right? September 10th. And I'm so excited to watch that game. But I keep thinking in the back of my head, it could be pulled away from me very fast. Yeah. And I keep thinking okay, how excited can I get for this game? Because it might just be they can't play this week because 27 players have tested positive. But I want to give lastly a shout out to everyone because I think that, and we've talked about this when I hosted with Jason, when we've talked about it, and in general, is that to play this season of football, college football and the NFL and Major League Baseball aren't in bubbles. There's a personal responsibility on the player to do more, to do their part off the field to stay out of COVID hotspots, right? Stay out of bars, restaurants, movie theaters, anywhere you can go that can get yourself sick. And so I credit the players for doing that. They are doing their job off the field and making sure they do not get in places where you can get COVID, and I commend them for that.
When we're talking to Geoff Schwartz, he's going to be sitting in with Jason Martin for the show on Monday, on Labor Day, which will be the Monday that we're talking about the return of the NFL. A lot of people, myself included, rip the NFL preseason, and we say it's worthless, it's no good. Here's what I would say. It definitely is an appetizer that goes on for way too long before a meal that you want. But it is kind of important because I feel like the NFL season is kind of sneaking up on all of us in that we don't really know. It doesn't feel like, right? I mean, we're talking about 8 days from now, the NFL kicks off, and I did my fantasy football draft, and we were talking yesterday on Fox Bet Live about, hey, who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Bears? Is it going to be Trubisky or Foles? And we literally have no data to point to, right? How good is Joe Burrow going to be? We don't know. How many snaps is Tua going to play? We don't know. All of that preseason football talk even if what's immediate talk? Well, it's just preseason football. You can't judge it. Well, he only went against the twos, where they're not playing against full speed. Like, right, all of those usual cliches, there's at least some evidence to support what we're arguing. And now it seems like, hey, well, Thursday it all starts, and we have really no idea what to expect. Even on your brother's team, and for people out there who don't know, your brother Mitchell is a starting offensive lineman for the Chiefs. Like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire seems like he could be an incredible asset for the Chiefs, but we haven't even seen him take a snap in a Chiefs uniform yet, so who the heck knows?
Yeah, you're just upset that the Titans make you pay full price for those preseason games.
Yeah.
That's what gets all this.
Well, I mean, I don't ever enjoy it as a season ticket holder, but I will say 4's the wrong number. But is 2 the right one? Like, if you sit down, I'll give you an example. You know, you like to eat. If you sit down at a table and they're like, do you want an appetizer? And you're like, you know what? Yeah, I would like an appetizer. Bring me a bloomin' onion, right? That bloomin' onion is really, really good. But at some point, if you eat the bloomin' onion for too long, it takes away from your enjoyment for the meal that's actually going to be there, right? Or if you're at one of those restaurants and they bring you like 4 or 5 different appetizers, and by the time the meal gets there, you're not as excited for it. You're kind of burned out. There's a happy medium, and I think we're missing that appetizer this year with the NFL, and I wonder whether it might impact the ratings next week just because a lot of people are suddenly like, holy crap, here it is.
I think it could be like a holy crap, here it is, because obviously it might sneak up on us.
Like, you put out you put out the Christmas decorations to be able to look forward to Christmas being there, right? Like, my wife is huge for Halloween. I don't even know what Halloween's going to look like this year, but she's got the Halloween decoration catalog, and she was ordering some stuff to put out in front of our house. And so my point is, the anticipation of Halloween, if you are an adult who likes to take your kids out or like to dress up or like to go to parties, or you're a kid that wants to go get trick-or-treating, is a huge part about the fact that Halloween's there. The best part about Christmas, in all honesty, is usually the run-up to Christmas, right? When you got kids, they get into bed. I know you try to play both sides of the coin here and have a Hanukkah and a Christmas tree celebration going on, the Jewish New Year, Jewish holidays, as well as the Christmas one. But for most people out there who are celebrating Christmas or whatever, it's the anticipation of Christmas that makes it so great. I'm wondering whether the anticipation's dialed back a bit.
Oh, it totally is. I mean, I think that especially, too, the political climate sucks up a lot of energy, too, right? I mean, we saw in 2016 the ratings went down, I think because of the kneeling, but also just because of debates, right, and Hillary and Donald Trump. And I feel like it's even more divisive this year, where a lot of energy is sucked up into politics, and then you add COVID on top of that. And I definitely think the ratings could be down, but I think there is excitement. And circling back on the preseason, remember next year they're going to 3 preseason games and 17 regular season games. So, they're making some adjustments to that schedule, knowing that 4 is probably a little bit too much. But this used to be a big day. Tomorrow used to be a huge day for guys like me, 7th round draft picks who needed that last game to get some tape, to get one more look in, who got to play a lot, got a lot to do a bunch of special teams, and it was a big day for us. And now that's gone, and we're going to start seeing teams cut down. I mean, the Chiefs and Texans are probably going to have to get to that 53-man roster number very soon to get ready to play. And your Titans are going to cut everyone this weekend. I mean, it's happening. So I miss kind of just knowing the season's going to start. And it's weird because Labor Day weekend is when I know it's going to start, and it's not starting on time. And so you're right. I think people are going to realize, oh, okay, Thursday night, September 10th, here we go. Let's do it.
Who should be favored? Like, I think this is, maybe we'll talk to you probably before. Maybe you and Jason Martin will get into it. But we haven't had a repeat champion in the NFL in a very long time. As we said earlier, your brother is on the Chiefs. Should the Chiefs be favored to win the Super Bowl this year in your mind?
Probably. I mean, they return 20 of 22 Super Bowl starters. If you want to add Juan Thornhill in, who didn't start the Super Bowl but was a starter all season, they return almost their entire team. And you mentioned they added at running back, the kid at LSU. And, yeah, they should be the favorite. But to your point, it's very hard to repeat in the NFL. The last team to do it was the Patriots all the way back in 2003-04. They won 2 in a row. And you look at a team like Baltimore, who is supremely talented, who has this chip on their shoulder now. They understand that they have to win playoff games. Their job this year is not a regular season title, right? It's not to be the best record. Obviously, they want to be the best record to have the 1 seed, but it's to win the Super Bowl. It's to finally win a playoff game and get over that hurdle. And this year too, Clay, remember, there's seven playoff teams this year, so only one team has that first round bye in home field throughout. And so, if you get that 1 seed, that's even more valuable now than it used to be. And so I'm curious to see how teams fight at the end of the season to get that 1 seed. But yes, Chiefs should be 1 in my opinion. Baltimore should be 2, probably New Orleans, San Francisco around there. But generally speaking, Clay, I don't know what to do about gambling. Like I think I'm leaning towards taking veteran teams against younger quarterbacks and younger defenses and just laying the points and staying away from any totals, because I have no idea how the game is going to look. I mean, you can make an argument that defenses are going to be ahead, but tackling is going to be atrocious. So how can defenses be ahead if no one can tackle anybody? So I just think that, I'm staying away from the totals, but I'll lay the points every time with, Baltimore against the Bengals. I'll just lay whatever it is, -8, 9, 10, because I just think that the veteran teams are going to have such a big advantage heading into the season.
Outstanding stuff as always. Geoff Schwartz, enjoy the show on Monday. We'll try to talk to you next week.
All right, take care, bud.